In this video, we'll take a look at creating topo surfaces within Revit. We'll learn two different ways to create a topo surface, as well as how to modify it using a building pad, site settings, and tagging contours. The first way to create a topo surface that we'll learn is by point. We'll want to go to the Massing and Site tab. Then we'll go to the Model Site panel, and we'll go ahead and use the Topo Surface tool. Before we select the Topo Surface tool, we'll want to make sure that we are in our project browser. We'll want to go to our Site view. That is where we will be able to see our Topo Surface as we create it. We'll go ahead and select the Topo Surface tool, and here we'll want to pick Place Point. This is how we'll create our topo surface, and we'll learn how to create from an import. This is the second way to create a topo surface in Revit. We'll learn that in just a minute. By placing a point, we will create a topo surface in Revit. We'll place points at different elevations, and over on our toolbar, this is where we will select how high above sea level our elevation of each point will be. As we select or pick different points of the elevation, Revit will combine them or connect them to create a topo surface. If we pick one point by left clicking and we are at elevation 0, Revit hasn't done anything yet. It is still waiting for more points. We can select a second point, again at elevation 0. We're still using elevation 0. And again, Revit hasn't done anything. Revit needs at least 3 points to create a topo surface, to define a plane, if you will. So as soon as we place our third point, and in this case elevation 0, you can see Revit is now making the connections. And we'll go ahead and just make a circular form of points all at elevation 0. If we go to our 3D view and we shade it, you can see that it is a flat piece of land, basically. Let's look at all of the windows here. So we'll keep the 3D view open on the right hand side so we can see what we're doing as we modify it. I didn't want to add this point over here. I'm going to select that point and delete it. So now we're back to our flat circlish piece of land. Okay, so now we have several points all at elevation 0 to create this form. So we can place more points, and we'll make this an elevation, let's say 5 feet. So these points will be a little bit higher than the points that we've already placed. And I'll just go around the ring a little bit inside of the ring, and we'll create a hill as we do this. And you can see that Revit infills the contours from 0 to 5 as I place the 5-foot elevation points. And over in our 3D view, you can see that it did exactly that. Now we don't have to go every 5 or every 1 or every 2 contours. We can place points, and in this case, let's go up to 50 feet. And Revit will infill all the contours between the 5 points, the points at 5 feet above elevation, to 50. And in this case, we'll make the 50 over on one side so you can see how it might be sloping a little bit more gently to get up to 50 on this side versus a steep side over here. So we'll just do this, and you can see what I mean by that. We were in sketch mode, so we'll come up here and finish sketch mode so we can take a look at our landform. And you can see how it made a very tall hill, very steep on the right hand side, and a little bit less steep over on the left hand side. Once we have our topo surface created, we can now modify it in a couple ways. The first way we'll look at is through a subregion. A subregion allows us to create a region on the topo surface and basically just change the material that we're looking at. So we'll use this tool if we want to make a parking lot or a grass area, but the contours are going to be the same as the topo surface that we've created. So we can come up to our Masking and Site tab, our Modify Site panel here, select the subregion tool here, and Revit knows that we're going to modify or create a subregion on this topo surface. So maybe we want to create a parking lot down on this area here. So we can just draw a shape, and then we could rotate this to make it align with the contours a little bit better, and then maybe make it a little bit smaller so it'll fit. I'll take it down the contours so you can see how it'll follow the contours. And then when we finish the sketch mode, not much has changed. You can see the outline of it. But now we can highlight that area, and we can go over to the Project Properties palette and change the material. In this case, maybe to concrete. And this is just saying, this warning here is saying that the materials don't have surface patterns when they are applied to a topo surface. But you do get the different color and the outline. And you can see how it does follow the contours down the hill. So that might be our parking lot. So that is the sub-region. That is how you create an area on a topo surface to change the material. Now the other way we can modify the topo surface is with a split surface. And unlike the subregion, the split surface allows us to actually change the grade within that split surface. So we'll go ahead and select the split surface. Now Revit, if you look down here, Revit is waiting for us to select a surface to split. So we'll, once we select split surface, now we have to select the main topo surface. And now it's grayed out, we're in sketch mode, and so now we can draw the outline of the area that we want it to be a split surface. So what I like to do to show this example is I like to make a circular pond right here in the middle. So I'm just going to make a circle here, and I'll finish sketch mode. And again, you can see that not much has changed. You can see the outline of the circle along those contours. But what we can do now is we can highlight that, and not only can we change the material, which we'll do, and we'll go ahead and make this water. Oh, well, it's not loaded. Let's see. We can make it out of anything. Doesn't matter. We'll just pick blue. It's doesn't matter what we're picking, but we'll make it blue, or it's almost clear there. But now the main point of this is to show that when we highlight it, we can now edit the surface. So we selected just the split surface, and now we're going to select Edit Surface. And you can see the contours or the points of elevation around the perimeter of our split surface. But now we can place more points, and I'm just going to place one point down at -10 feet, right in the middle, and it'll make a cone. I'm going to finish that sketch, and now you can see what it did. And you can see that it created that inverse cone just within the area of the split surface. And then as we go along and create more split surfaces for subregions, the last way we can modify the topo surface is by merging the split surface back to the main surface. So if you do some grading and you find out that that's not what you really wanted to do in that area, you can merge them the two back together. So we'll go ahead and select Merge Surface. The first surface you pick, you're going to pick the two surfaces you want to merge. The first one you pick is the one that will keep the material. The second one you pick will then go and become the material of the first one. So if we pick the main topo surface, and now we pick the second split surface, you can see that it disappeared and it merged the two. Didn't just make it disappear, it actually merged the two. So you can see how it, it's got the -10 down here. and so it sort of combined the two, but the material is from the main topo surface. There's one more tool that we'll take a look at to modify the topo surface, and that is the building pad. And the building pad is what you'll use to flatten out a topo surface. So it'll either bring the topo surface up to the building pad or bring the topo surface down to meet the building pad. And this is where you'll place your model, your building, the model of your building. So you have a flat piece of land or topo surface to work with. So let's take a look at that tool. And I'm going to go ahead and create a building pad. Again, you're in sketch mode, and you can use any of these sketch tools to draw the outline of the building pad. But I'm going to just create one right here. So we have some of the some of the contours that'll come up to meet the building pad over in this area. But over on the high side of the hill up here, they'll get pushed down to meet it. And right now, the elevation of this building pad you can see over here is 0. So if it was at 0, all of these contours would get pushed down. So we're going to place this somewhere in the middle. So this is at elevation 25. And we'll say OK. And let's see. It's a little too tall. Highlight that again. Let's take it down to 15 feet. There you go. And we might actually edit the boundary and bring this farther into the hill so we can really take a look at it. Let's make it come this way as well. Okay. Now let's see what happened here. If we can come over to this side, what you can see happened is wherever this building this building pad was higher than the contours over on these two edges, the contours came up to meet it. And wherever this building pad was lower than the contours, each of these contours went down to meet it. So it cuts the hill out on the uphill side, and it builds the hill up on the downhill side. And that is the building pad. Once you have your contour model finished and you have it the way you want it to look as far as the model of the topo surface is concerned, we can go ahead and label the contours and change the appearance of it so it looks exactly how we want to on our drawings. I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this and start over just so we have a clean topo surface to work from. I'm going to place my points again. And then I'll make a hill, let's say 30 feet high, way over on this end. So there's our topo surface, and it looks like a hill. So the first thing we can do is label the contours. And again, this is on the Massing and Site tab, and it's the tool way over on the right-hand side, Label Contours. And for this tool, we'll basically just draw a line with 2 points, the first point being the first part of the line, and then you can see wherever I'm going to click the second point will create the line. So I'll go to the top of the hill, select, and you can see how it has labeled all the contours. You'll also notice that every 10th contour, or every 10 feet above elevation, we get it's called a major contour, and that's the big bold one. And so this helps us visually represent quickly the different elevations. So we have 0, 10, 20, and 30 is at the top. So let's learn how we can modify these and change them to the way we want them to look. Again, if you go to your Massing and Site tab, right here you'll see a little arrow. And if you select that little arrow, you can change how Revit will display our topo surface and the annotations for it. So here you can see that the contour line display are at intervals of 10 feet. So this is talking about the major contours, the big bold ones. And this right here is telling us where it's starting from. So the major contours are starting at 0. If we change this to 5, you can see how they all shifted starting at the 5th contour. Oops, let's go back to there. And then, so this is talking about the major contours, and then these are additional contours or the minor contours. And so it starts at 0 and goes up to 1,000, and it's going every 1 foot. If we don't want to see every foot, or if there's no need for it, we could maybe change that to every 2 feet. And you can see it gets a little more simple. And then the last two things we'll take a look at are the section cut material. So when we cut a section through this topo surface, everything below the topo surface, what do we want to see? And the pattern here is earth, and we can change that to any of our patterns or colors here. And so you can see that the earth is the cut pattern, so that's what it's going to use when we cut it. We could change it to anything, but earth is really what makes sense here. And then how far down do we want to see that pattern go? And by default, it's -10 feet, and that works. So let's take a look at that. So we'll create a new view, section cut, and we'll just cut it straight through the hill. And if we take a look at this, you can see that you get an earth pattern. You see the big line where it's cut, and you can see that in fact we can copy this down 10 feet. You can see that the poché, the earth cut, goes down 10 feet below the level 1, the bottom level. And again, that was coming all from here. And that's how you can change the settings of the topo surface and how it's going to look. The last thing we'll take a look in this video is how to create a topo surface from an imported AutoCAD drawing. Here you can see an AutoCAD drawing that a civil engineer has created, and it includes the contour lines here. You can see this green one, that's a major contour, and these blue ones are the minor contours. The important thing is in this AutoCAD file is that if I look at it in 3D and turn it, you can see that those contours are they actually do have a 3-dimension to them. So we can use those to create a topo surface in Revit fairly easily. The next thing we need to know is what layers those contours are on. If we go to the layer list here, I know because I've worked with this file, but the contour major and the contour minor layers here, these are the two that we're going to want to import. All the other ones we don't need. So we can close that. And so again, the important things are that the contours from the survey are actually in 3 dimensions in the AutoCAD file. They actually have a Z-axis to them. And then 2, that we know which layers those are. So in Revit, we're going to go to we're going to make sure we're in our site plan here, and we'll go to our Insert tab, and we'll insert a CAD drawing. So we'll import a CAD drawing, and we're going to go find that file we were just looking at. And here it is here. There's a couple things we want to take a look at. Revit does a good job because Autodesk owns both Revit and AutoCAD. They talk to each other fairly well. So we can have Revit figure out many things with the civil drawing, this AutoCAD drawing, without us having to worry about it. So we can have it position it origin to origin. We're going to place it at level 1. The colors, for now, we'll preserve. Actually, we might at some point want to use this survey as a drawing, so we're going to make the colors black and white. And then we'll go ahead and bring in all the layers, and that's fine. And then we'll auto-detect the import units. So once we're there, we'll just select Open. And it imported it, but it put it way over there, so we're going to grab it, unpin it, and we'll move it back to the center of the drawing. You can see that it's in between all the elevation markers, so it's in the center of our file now. Over in our 3D view, you can see the contours. So now let's make a topo surface out of this. And you want to do this in 3D view, but we'll go to our Massing and Site tab. We'll create a topo surface. And instead of by place point, we'll create from an import. Now there's two ways you can create from an import, from an instance or from a points file. Points file is something different. We're not going to learn about that in this class. But selecting an import instance, that's basically the AutoCAD drawing. So we'll select that. We want to go to our 3D view and we'll select that file. When we do that, Revit will read the layers from the AutoCAD file and ask us which ones do we want to use to create the topo surface. I'm going to check none, and if you remember, contour major and contour minor are the layers that were in the AutoCAD file that represent the topo surface or the contours. And we'll hit OK, and you can see, just like that, Revit created an accurate topo surface from the points in the AutoCAD file. Now you do see a little bit of a mess up here, and so there were some floating points in the AutoCAD file that are down at 0. Those are obviously incorrect. So all I have to do is select those and delete them. And that gets us a topo surface that is accurate from the AutoCAD file. We can finish the sketch mode. And then we can, if we wanted to, we can go to VG, Visibility Graphics, and we can go to Imported Categories tab and turn off that AutoCAD drawing, and we're left with the topo surface.